I've watched so many videos about why that is. How did we get here? Rent prices in Johannesburg are 35.6% lower than in Cape Town. Don't know what constitutes a city center in Johannesburg because rough in city center in Johannesburg. On TikTok, I've seen it everywhere. People are just not dealing with the cost of living, and yet the month is longer than the money. So I'm not sure how we are going to survive, but in terms of the pocket and affordability and the economic situation at the moment, Johannesburg is the place to be. So, doing a cost of living audit, cost of living in Johannesburg audit, check-in comparison to Cape Town, because when I was in Cape Town, that was a hot topic for me. And I have to be honest, when I was there, it made this particular season, mother of two, just relocated back into the country, particularly difficult because the cost of living was just not sustainable, at least for the type of life I would like to afford myself and my children. So let's get into it. Hi beloveds, welcome back to my channel. Happy new week. Hope everybody's surviving is it second quarter already? Yes, the second quarter. We, changing from second gear to third gear. And despite, a tough first quarter, we are continuing on. And, I come here and I'm open and I'm myself and I'm authentic. And that means sometimes, I'm documenting harder weeks, harder months, harder days, and I'll do a recap, taking stock maybe 2-3 months from now, how it's going, all things corporate work, what I've done about it. There's some things in the pipeline, how I'm dealing with it, but thank you so much for the support that you guys showed me in that particular episode. If you're new here, my name is Dambisa. I'm a mom of two based in Johannesburg, corporate political baddie, people's person, extrovert, and YouTube has become a real safe space for me to document somewhat of a visual diary, which I enjoy, to be honest. I think it's quite refreshing. But go check out my other videos to really see what I'm about and what my content's about. Today, though, I'm talking about the cost of living. Before I get to the specifics around cost of living in Johannesburg, I just want to say, it dawned on me the other day that I've been a professional working person for the past 11 years. I remember when I was earning 6K and I had somehow miraculously enough money to pay my rent. I still had money to put into my car for petrol because I was gifted a car by my aunt. Shout out to her, she's watching. And so I didn't have an installment to pay. And somehow had money left over. I don't know how I did that, and that wasn't even that long ago. And sure, it wasn't like I was splurging, but I didn't feel so tight all the time in terms of expenses. Sure, granted, with 6K, there's very little you can invest into, there's very little you can save, there's very little debt that you're probably in, which is what my life currently looks like right now. So obviously, my finances have become, my financial responsibilities have increased with a bigger paycheck. But obviously, we all know, post-COVID, even before that, that life has just gotten quite expensive. It is crazy to think that I've had a salary jump now between the salary I earned in Cape Town and the salary I earn now, and yet I still feel the same pinch. I still don't have breathing room financially. I still don't have money left at the end of the month. The month is always longer than the money. And when I do my calculations, there's always a figure that I have in mind that when I get to this figure, I'll have breathing room. But the figure that I have now is the figure I thought when I get to this figure, I'll have breathing room. And yet I'm here and still feeling tight. So there's just something about the economy, how expensive things have become, how salaries are just not matching our realities. And I'm not even a splurger. I live in a very modest place with my kids. I don't drive the fanciest car. I take my kids, to good schools. Well, my eldest, she's the only one who goes to school for now. I do prioritize education. All I'm trying to say is I don't live an expensive life. And yet the month is longer than the money. So I'm not sure how we are going to survive. And I have to admit, I'm also not a fan of multiple streams of income, because you already feel so overstretched, overworked with your one job, for goodness sake, and now you have to spend time at night and on the weekends to make money. How? When? With what energy? Because we all know, for anything to really be successful, you have to put in some energy into it. So I'm struggling a little bit with the concept of we have to work our lives off to be able to live, you know, comfortably. And comfortably doesn't mean we're splurging on something in money. So I'm struggling a bit with that. But I'm also exploring side hustles, because currently our reality requires it. And as a mom of two, obviously, safety, financial security, financial security is a priority for me. My children's well-being is a priority for me. So those are things that I need to prioritize in order to obviously live a certain type of life, and that means having a stable income. And so even if it may not be a dream income, it's an income nevertheless. So the older I'm getting, the harder this reality becomes to accept, because you always think, I've worked, if I were to put it into perspective, 10 years in, sure, there are people who are 15 years in, 20 years in, 50, 10 years in. You know, when you're an 18-year-old, you're thinking, once I've worked for 10 years, I'm going to be earning and I'm going to be comfortable. If you're watching this, I have reached 10 years and I'm not quite there yet. It's not to say other people are not there, but that's definitely not my reality. And sure, my load looks very different. But that's a whole different conversation. We are drowning. I've seen it on the socials. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it everywhere. People are just not dealing with cost of living. And so I'm doing on that note, I'm doing a cost of living audit, and using the same source that I used for my cost of living in Cape Town audit, taking stock. If you're watching this for the first time and considering to live in Joburg or considering to move here, what do the facts tell us? So the facts tell us this. Average monthly salary in Johannesburg is 24,000 Rand on average after tax. So this is the average take-home salary. Okay, then this is the summary of cost of living. Summary of cost of living in Johannesburg. A family of 4 is estimated to spend or need about 43,800 Rands per month without rent. This is a family of 4. And then it says a single person is estimated to need or earn to need 12,400 Rands to afford a comfortable life in Johannesburg. Let's get into specifics. So according to this source, it says the cost of living in Johannesburg is statistically 5.9% higher than in Cape Town. Statistically, this is excluding rent. Then it says that the cost of living including rent in Johannesburg is 6.5% lower than in Cape Town. Okay, rent prices in Johannesburg are 35.6% lower than in Cape Town. 35.6% lower than in Cape Town. So technically life in Joburg is more expensive, or would be more expensive. If both cities had the same amount of rent, then it would be more expensive to live in Johannesburg. But by virtue of the crazy ridiculous property prices in Cape Town, it has made Johannesburg a far more affordable city to live in, statistically. Goes on to say restaurant prices in Johannesburg are 9.8% higher than in Cape Town. This I found particularly surprising, because Cape Town is a tourist hub. There are plenty of fine dining places. There are new restaurants popping up every now and again, and because it's such a expat hub, so many people from abroad live there. And with the introduction of this remote work visa, most people would rather be based in Cape Town than anywhere else in the country. You'd expect, and also it's so aesthetically pleasing. I didn't expect that the prices in Johannesburg would be more than the prices in Cape Town. But granted, I'm not necessarily a fine diner. I enjoy a good meal. I like exploring new places, but I don't do it frequently enough to really know or I don't do it frequently enough for it to hit the pocket. So I'm not the right person to ask, but apparently this is what the stats say. So people who live in Johannesburg and like going out, eating out, maybe you've made this distinction already. And then it goes on to say grocery prices in Johannesburg are 0.7% lower than in Cape Town. I don't know what would make it lower. So the retail girlies, supply chain management girlies and boys, if you can explain in the comments why that would be the case, please let us know. I mean, I can assume why, but this is not an informed assumption, so I'm not going to say it in this space. But yeah, that's what the stats say, that it's slightly a bit cheaper to buy groceries here in the city. In terms of rent, let's get into the specifics, because that particular stat really surprised me. Sure, I felt it myself. I have a lived experience of this, but I didn't think that the figures would be this crazy. So it says here, to rent an apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in Cape Town city center, on average, it would cost you 13,000 Rand on average. And then the same would cost you about 7.5 thousand Rand in Johannesburg. Don't know what constitutes a city center in Johannesburg, because go rough in the city center in Johannesburg. But this is what the stats say. They don't go into specifics of areas. In Cape Town, it's easy to say city center because that's pretty straightforward where that is. But Johannesburg is much bigger. And so I'm not sure what constitutes city center in this case. Okay, fine. Then it says a 1-bedroom apartment outside of the center in Cape Town can cost you around 9,000 Rand. I can attest, this was definitely my reality. We paid, and I can't remember now the actual figure when we arrived. I think it was 9.6 or something around that figure. And then it increased by 10%. Then it was 10.6. Something there, somewhere there. There's a video where I detail this more concretely, but this is definitely it matches my lived experience. And then it says in Johannesburg, a 1-bedroom apartment would cost you about 6.5. And I just thought about it as I was reading the stat. Actually, the 9,000 Rand would have not been my reality because I lived in a 2-bed, but I paid about 9 point something when we arrived. That was our initial rent, and it increased to 10.6 in the end. So yeah. And then it says a 3-bedroom apartment in the city center in Cape Town on average costs you about 25,851 to the Rand. It doesn't surprise me. And then in Johannesburg, the same 3-bed apartment in the city center would be about 16,150. Again, don't know what constitutes city center in this case in Johannesburg, but seems realistic. Then a 3-bedroom apartment outside of the city center in Cape Town can cost you about 17,880, and in Johannesburg about 12,519 to the Rand. So we see where the 35.6% lower rent on average comes from. There's a glaring difference between these two cities in terms of property prices. I've watched so many videos about why that is. How did we get here? Why are the property prices so crazy in Cape Town? And sure, a lot of it makes sense. I'll try and link some of them in the bio so that you all can sort of have a well-informed opinion on this. But I think the long and short of it is the cost of living in Cape Town is crazy. I've spoken about it enough. And now that I've been in Johannesburg for 3 months and counting, I mean, I've lived here before, but obviously not having the comparison in mind. I can attest that, yes, we have a bit of breathing room financially. We're still not balling. There's still more month than money at the end of the month. But definitely the money stretches, and we're able to afford far more with a similar amount of money. So it's unfortunate. I think Cape Town is a beautiful city. I think it's a lovely city to explore. If you're watching this for the first time and you're considering to travel to Cape Town, do it by all means. I'm no Cape Town basher. I love Cape Town. I think it's a very meaningful, not even I think, it's a very meaningful city in my life. My daughter was born there. My son's family is based there. It's, it's a place I hold dear. There's so many firsts that are attached to Cape Town in my life. However, the reality is adult D doesn't necessarily want to live there, and neither can I afford to live there. That's just another reality. I think, to be honest, I was reflecting on this recently. Had I had the same job offer with the same amount of money, would I have stayed in Cape Town? And I would have. But because this particular job required me to move, I was also happy to do it, and I'm not going to pretend that cost of living wasn't one of the factors. 110% was it a factor. I've detailed this in multiple videos. And so you think about those things when you have 2 kids and you're an adult and you're thinking, okay, I don't just have to think about myself, I have to think about the well-being of my kids, the type of life I'd like to give them, etc., etc., etc. So yes, Johannesburg is definitely a far more affordable city. Maybe in a few months when I'm whining and dining a bit more and I'm outside again a bit more, maybe I can then feel the pinch in terms of that 9 point something % in terms of restaurant prices, and can do a comparison maybe. But I'm not really a splurger, and those who do, let us know, is that the truth? I've heard a lot of restaurant bashing in Joburg. A lot of people aren't impressed with the food, the quality of the food in Johannesburg, but I can't speak to the prices. Long and short of it is, happy to be here. Love staying in the city. I think it's such a beautifully imperfect place, and truly metropolitan, I guess, African city. I think I've been to enough African cities and towns to make that comparison. Yeah, I love Johannesburg. I think it's vibrant. I think it's real. I think it's authentic. And thank goodness it's also good on the pocket in comparison to Cape Town. There are a lot of experiences, though, that I wish you sort of could, take from Cape Town and have them here. But it just wouldn't be the same, and vice versa. So I think each city naturally has its strengths. But in terms of the pocket and affordability and the economic situation at the moment, Johannesburg is the place to be for me. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you guys next time.